Welcome to Negotiation Made Simple, where we help you master the art of negotiation and win the next deal. I'm your host, John Lowry. In this episode, we are going to jump in and take a deep dive into sales negotiation. I love the conversation around sales because it is fascinating as people are trying to sell their product or service. The reality is that happens in the context of people. While it may be B2B, as they say, the reality is that every negotiation happens between people. And today we are going to talk with one of the world's foremost successful salespeople, Mark Anthony McCray. Mark is one of the top salespeople at a worldwide logistics firm, and he's here today to share with us his secrets to sales negotiation, what he's learned from years and years of putting deals together and managing critical client relationships. And in this episode, we will learn a lot about negotiation, but we will learn also about how it is that we interact with people, how it is that we communicate more strategically, many skills that can help you become better at sales. Now, even if you're not in sales, don't go anywhere, because this episode will be really powerful in terms of helping you in your work become more influential and more effective as you look to do good things with people. Let's jump into this conversation with Mark Anthony McCray. Well, Mark, I'm really excited about this conversation with you where we really think about sales negotiation. This is an important part of a series that we're doing where we're really trying to help people contextualize everything that we've talked about from a negotiation standpoint into their specific world. And one of the privileges that I've had is the opportunity to train just thousands of salespeople over the years and help them think about how to become better in managing the negotiation part of sales. And so I am thrilled to hear about your journey and have you teach us what you've learned and how you've applied new ideas and new strategies so that you can deliver more success and continue to be at the top of your game. But before we jump into all of that, really excited to kind of get to know you, get to know your background, get to know kind of your sales success. Why don't we just start with giving us a sense of your journey?
Sure. So one of the things that I like to tell people is that I am a Texan, born and raised Texan. I'm very proud of that. I've always been proud of that. I think we have that in common, John. Maybe you'll tell us a little bit about your background.
All right, let me stop you right there. Like that, this is newsworthy. Okay, you're a Texan and you're proud of it. Like that has never happened before. I've never met a Texan who wasn't super proud of it. That's awesome.
Texans are like people that graduate from Harvard, right? It only takes a moment before they let you know that they graduated from Harvard.
So there you go. Well, I moved from California to Texas. And so I showed up as a Californian to go to law school in Texas. And I quickly learned that I was not from Texas. And folks made that very clear to me. And I was gracious with all of the University of Texas football fans as in that moment, it was SC in Texas, right? You remember those Rose Bowls and all that kind of stuff?
All of that, yes.
Yeah, and so I was careful because I did not want to offend my Texas friends because I knew that their heart and soul was in University of Texas football.
It becomes a part of our identity. For better or worse, it's a part of our identity. So that's what I was raised in. And so I grew up in Texas. I went to the University of Texas, and I started working for a transportation company, a large global transportation company, right after graduation, and I had a great experience doing that. So I took some years away from that, since you're asking a little bit about my background. I took some years away from that and worked in commercial real estate finance for a very long time until this little thing called the recession hit the national economy in that 2008, 2010 timeframe, at which point I started looking around at my career, at my opportunities, and I decided to get back into global transportation. So I worked for a large global transportation and logistics company currently. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I have a wonderful wife. We have 4 daughters, and I have recently become a granddad. So that's a little bit about my personal life.
Well, congratulations on that. That is fantastic. But you left out part of what I know about your background, and that in your career, you have not just been a salesperson, but you have been one of the top salespeople for the company that you currently work at, as well as some of your other companies. Tell us just a little bit about some of the success that you've enjoyed in sales.
Oh, yeah, of course. So sorry, I did skip over a lot in that introduction, right? So here's the thing, John, and you know this better than I do because you've written a book and you've trained thousands about this, but everything we do is sales. And one of the things that I learned very early on is that it would be the best path for my family, for our financial future, for my career, to really embrace that ethos, to really embrace that thought that everything is sales. And so, with that, I've tried to steer my career in those directions. So, I talked a little bit about working in transportation. I talked about working in finance and real estate. But really, the common thread through all of those is I've always gravitated towards the sales side of the equation, the customer interaction and the delivering of value part of it. And frankly, that's where I have excelled. I enjoy it. I think I've got some skills towards that, but more importantly, I think I've received some really good training towards those objectives. So now, in my current role, yes, I reached out to you and told you that I wanted to share with you, and I didn't expect that I'd end up sharing this time on a podcast, but I reached out to tell you that your book, I think, really took things to a higher level for me. So within the organization that I'm part of now, I actually completed this last fiscal year as the number one healthcare sales teammate in our company. And I have to tell you, we're in the middle of another fiscal year and things are trending towards a similar direction now. So I have you to thank for a lot of that, John, frankly.
Well, congratulations on your success. And I know that some of the ideas and some of the things that you've been able to capture from the book and this podcast, they're only a very tiny little part. At the end of the day, sales is what I call, it is not hard work. You just have to work hard. And if you work hard at it and you're smart about it, as you clearly are, and you're constantly pouring into yourself, you set the stage for tremendous sales success. And as you, I think, so carefully and artfully described, there is so much of life that is sales. And it's fascinating to me from my higher education background why sales is not a required course as part of an undergraduate curriculum. Because somebody's going to have to sell something at some point in their life. Like that is just something that you have to do. And I tell my friends in the legal field, I say, look, I said, I'm going to use lots of sales examples. And I said, the reason I am is because I think you all are in sales. And they look at me funny, like, John, I'm a lawyer. What are you talking about? I'm not in sales. And I was like, well, let's think about it. Are you a defense attorney or a plaintiff's attorney? And they'll say, well, I'm a plaintiff's attorney. I was like, okay, well, all you're doing is selling a release. And if you're a defense attorney, you're just buying a release. And I was like, that's what it's all about. And so thank you for setting the foundation for this conversation by reminding all of us that we are in sales. For those of us that are in sales, we'll pay really close attention to what you have to say. But for those of us that wouldn't technically see ourselves as in sales or it's not part of our job title, don't go anywhere because this is going to be exceptionally relevant. So what was the moment for you where you knew that sales was where you needed to be? This is what you were made to do. Was there a specific moment where you kind of had that realization?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I'm going to have to say that I don't know that there was a specific moment in the positive sense. There was a moment in the negative sense. When I was in college, I was actually studying engineering, and I was studying architectural engineering and doing pretty well, frankly, at it. But when we did this thing called a follow an engineer to work sort of day, and I got a chance to see what the day-to-day looked like for some of the people whose career I'd be joining just in another couple of years, it didn't attract me as much as I thought it would. What did attract me was talking to the marketing people, talking to the salespeople in the firm, learning how they interact with their clients and how they really deliver value that makes everyone win. Now, I know that sounds a little bit towards being a cliche, but that really is fundamental to what I think makes business work. And that attracted me more than working as an engineer. So if you go back, I guess the origin story would be coming through the university, becoming getting close to graduation in architectural engineering, and just realizing that the engineering part of these firms I was visiting was not the most attractive part to me. The most attractive part was interacting with customers, clients, delivering value for the company and for them.
So I'm really excited to hear more about that. We're going to jump into this conversation right now, but what you just described with this idea of every sales transaction, even though you have one person representing a company and another person representing a company, and we would call that B2B sales, the reality is it's people. It's people that put deals together, and it's people that make decisions. And so really what we're talking about here is, how is it that we effectively work with people and influence people? Because I think that's a big part of what sales is all about. So let's talk about and start with just kind of give us your philosophy of sales. As you think about this every day, as you go to work, what is some of the guiding principles, or what is the framework that you use to be successful?
So I have a fundamental guiding principle, and that is sales works best when we're removing friction from people's lives.
Interesting.
So to your point, it's all about people. And from a sales and selling point of view, look, even more so than ever, John, this is my philosophy. It's super empathetic. That'll sound familiar to you.
Yeah.
Super empathetic, which is we're all incredibly busy. We've all got a lot of pressures, whether it's personal, financial, health, professional. We're all super busy. We all have more to do than we are able to do with our day. Mm-hmm. So the last thing that anyone wants to do is deal with the salesperson that's making their increasing the amount of challenges, making their job tougher. So I look at my job on a day-to-day basis, every single day, as removing friction from people's lives. Sometimes that is from a professional point of view, the product or services that I'm selling. Sometimes it's just in helping them manage their calendar better, manage their time better, and their interaction with me. So from my point of view, John, the more friction you can remove from someone's life, the more sales you're going to make. And it's really as simple as that. Make it easy to do business with you. I think a lot of us out there, whether you're working in law, whether you're working as a teacher, working in academia, whether you're running a barbershop, we make it more difficult than it has to be for people to do business with us. So if you're looking for one fundamental guiding principle, it's that: remove friction.
I love that thought. That's a really brilliant thought, because it's so true in terms of, I experience this a lot with, technology these days. Like, before, you used to show up to a parking lot and there'd be someone there and you'd hand them a $10 bill and you'd park in the parking lot. Now you show up and you got to download an app on your phone. You got to put in your license plate, your credit card. You got to go through all this. Half the time it doesn't work. And you're sitting here now. In fact, I had this really funny moment recently where I was parked and a former governor of Tennessee pulls into the parking space next to me. And we're at a place that has one of these kind of parking systems. And so he and I are sitting there chatting, and he's trying to figure out how to use the system. Yes. And it is a train wreck, right? And I'm trying to help him. And he's like, I just don't understand. He's like, I'm a pretty sophisticated guy, but there's no way I'm going to figure out how to get this parking thing to work. And I was like, I understand, Governor. I was like, it can be a challenge. But the point you make is so powerful, because the reality is that people, they're looking to have their problem solved. Some of those are external problems. In your case, I got to get this stuff from here to there, and I need to do it efficiently, and I need to do it at the lowest cost possible. That's kind of an external problem. But at the end of the day, what's on the line is their ego. What's on the line is their name. What's on the line is their reputation. And that becomes a far more complex problem to have to deal with from a sales standpoint. So talk about how you balance like the technical and the external with what's really going on inside of them as far as kind of the internal.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better than you just outlined it there. At the end of the day, everyone has a constituency. So you asked me about my founding guiding principle, it's removing friction. The second would be understand that everyone has a constituency. Everyone has someone in front of whom they want to look good, someone in front of whom they want to perform well. So it's about their pride. It's about how they look. It's about making doing business with me beneficial for you, making you look good. That is something that I keep front of mind every time I'm interacting with someone in a sales capacity, help them look good. So, like you said, there's going to be internal and external pieces of that. There's going to be things that are strictly professional, but there's also going to be things that are more personal and a little softer. So here's an example. I'll give you an example of that. You can make a sales presentation, and from a strict point of view, a lot of people will they will approach that presentation and make sure that they've got discounts, rates. They'll check their spelling. They'll do all these things to try to make sure the presentation looks pristine. That's wonderful. But what you really should be looking at is how does that presentation look to the next group, the next party, to the people to whom that person is going to show it, so that you're positioning yourself in a way that makes it easy to do business with, you. You're removing friction. The friction in this case would be, how can I best understand what I'm looking at in front of me? So all those things that you say are just really key. It's about helping people look good. And again, I know there's more sophisticated ways to say that, but as we're going through our day, as I'm going through my day and I'm super busy, I'm always thinking, how can I make this person look good?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as I think about that, I'm reminded of a research I like to share. There was some really interesting research that was done by Harvard. I think I've shared this with the Negotiation Made Simple audience, but it was research that was really looking into why people make decisions. And at the end of the day, what that came down to was the number one driver of decision-making, even business decision-making, that was as cold as, am I going to make money or not doing this thing, or investing in this company, or whatever the case might be. Even those decisions, they were primarily driven by ego. Yes. And what was so interesting about the ego was they explored more because it originally got communicated as emotion. And Harvard had to do a little bit more digging. And what they found was the number one thing that drove people's decision-making from a sales and deal-making standpoint was, how do I look when I consider being associated with Mark and his company? And it wasn't, what do I think of Mark? It wasn't, what do I think of Mark's logistics company? It was, how do I feel about myself doing business with Mark and being associated with him and his company? And when people start to realize that, now all of a sudden the sales formula, the sales equation changes drastically, doesn't it?
Oh, it's incredible. So it all goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So what you're talking about there is the ego, the pride, the how do I feel? How do I look in terms of doing business with Mark? And we're going to make that decision. It's going to look maybe irrational or emotional, but we're going to make that decision, and then we're going to rationalize it later with the data and the facts. So look, you're 100% right. So one of the things, and again, you're talking about, or you asked me about guiding principles. Here's another one, John, and you've heard this before, and that is, there's only one reason a sale is ever made. It's two reasons. One is more powerful than the other. The first most powerful reason is to relieve a pain. And then the second reason is to avoid a pain. So if you look at that, it's really all about pain. And I promise you, I'm not off track. The things that you were talking about in terms of ego and pride, those are all emotional, psychological pains that we're either trying to relieve or avoid.
Yeah.
So wrapping that all together, that ego, that pride, that how do we look in front of our partner? How do we look at home as a result of this decision? How do we look to our board? How do we look to our other executive peers? Those are all related to that desire to relieve those pains as related to ego, image, or to avoid the pain of looking like we made a poor decision, like we're incompetent. So I agree with you. I said a lot of words to just agree with you strongly that what we really want to focus on is the people side of the equation, because that's how we make decisions, all of us. And then we're going to justify them later with the facts and with the data, with the spreadsheets and with the analysis.
Yeah, well, it was a long way, but there was a lot of good learning in that. So really valuable stuff.
A long way. That's your way of saying that I'm too verbose. Okay.
No, not at all. There's a lot of great learning in it. So you were very gracious at the top to talk about the Negotiation Made Simple book and how it's been helpful to you. And what I want to do is I want to dig into that for just a second. Not for any sort of kind of ego trip on my part, but really what I want to have a conversation about that I think would be very useful for people is for them to learn from you how you applied some of the principles of the book into your world. This is a great example for folks to be able to say, interesting, like I heard that, I read that, I experienced that, but I didn't really know how to apply it. Here's an opportunity for the application. And the reason that the application is so important is because at the end of the day, that's what generates the result. Yes. Is when you take an idea and you put it to work. But that can be hard to do. That can be frustrating. That can be scary in terms of doing something differently for the first time. And so what I'd love to have you do is talk about a principle from the book that kind of stood out for you, but then really tell us the story about how you applied it successfully so that people can learn about the application of these ideas and these strategies.
Sure, glad to. So I've got two or three that we can go through, John. And first of all, I will say I'm not just being gracious. What I've loved about your book is, and it's not unearned praise or flattery I'm trying to give you. I'm telling you that through your book, it's not only attitude and mindset, but you provided a framework that really was useful. There's, if you go to Amazon or any bookseller now, you can probably Google and find 25 to 35,000 books on negotiations. And a lot of them are wonderful. And I've read probably a dozen of them, and they do a really good job of helping me establish the proper mindset. What I found in your book is a framework and tools that I could use on a day-to-day basis in ways that I've never done before. So I'll give you a few examples. First of all, right at the front, you issue a challenge, and that is to pull out your business card and scratch through your title and write professional negotiator instead of your title. And I put down my book. I went and grabbed 3 business cards. So I'd have one in my car, one in my pocket, and one elsewhere. And I wrote out professional negotiator. And it was just a good mindset shift to help me be reminded that my job is negotiating. That is my job here. I'm negotiating on behalf of my company. I'm negotiating on behalf of my customer and on behalf of my life and my future and some things that I want to do for my family. So more to the tool side, I'd say the second thing is your negotiator's preparation checklist. How did I use that? Well, one of the things that people that are comfortable talking and people that have been in sales for years, one of the things that we like to do is wing it. We think we can go into any situation and wing it and come out successful. And you know what? We do. I often am able to go in and wing it and everything goes fine. But you know what? Sometimes it doesn't go well. And sometimes you're leaving value on the table. And quite honestly, sometimes you're taking something that could have been a huge win and it becomes either a mediocre win or even a loss because we didn't take the time to prepare, and not just prepare myself, but prepare my team. And so going through your checklist, I actually stopped and did it and wrote out, and it forced me to be mindful of the assumptions that I was making bringing into the scenario. It made me think about, is this going to be a competitive or cooperative situation? And it made me really go through, not only prepare myself, but prepare my team. And I took it so far as to write out a written strategy document and circulated it above me, peers, and also people that are going to be supporting me. So if you're looking for what did I do, I took your book, and instead of reading it and saying only, hey, great, this is a good idea, I put it down a couple of times and did the steps that you were recommending. And they were, quite frankly, transformative because they allowed me to stop and not just go into a situation and assume that I was going to be able to just pull it together because I am, great and powerful and have had a track record of success. So that go ahead. I hear you want to add something there.
No. I just want to dig in a little deeper because I think your experience can be so valuable for others. I'm curious, to your point at the top where we talked about how, we just don't have a lot of time. One of the number one things I hear from people is like, man, how long is this going to take to kind of go through this preparation process? So share with people, like for a high stakes negotiation where you use the tool, you work the checklist, like how much time did you think that it took to kind of work through that to where you felt prepared?
Well, yeah. I mean, John, here's the thing. The first thing I'd say to anyone who has that sort of objection is I would just ask them, how important is this scenario?
Interesting.
Is it important? If it's truly important, make the time. You go through in the book the various scenarios that prompt you to analyze the value of the relationship versus the value of the situation. So if you're in a situation where this is critical to your future, your company's future, maybe reputation, we talked a lot about ego and pride, then you've got to make the time. So then, though, to the how long did I invest? That's hard to say. I'd say between reading the book a couple of times and then sitting down, probably a good solid 7-8 hours in preparation for going into the first set of meetings, and then maybe a couple of hours thereafter. So that's harder to measure, but I can tell you, you can never over prepare. You can never over prepare. And in fact, I'll say it this way, John, and this isn't necessarily praiseworthy of me, but there's probably been substantial negotiations where I didn't spend 30 minutes in the past.
Yeah.
So I'd say to someone, since you're thinking about the broader audience, if you can even take 30 minutes to an hour, maybe you're on a flight to another city and you decide, I'm going to take this checklist and I'm going to sit here in my seat and I'm going to go through some of these questions and I'm going to test some assumptions. I think that'd be well worth it.
That's fantastic. And I'm also interested in what you said about how this was a useful tool for aligning your team. Talk a little bit about how you used it to align the team around a strategy.
Well, once I got a chance to go through and put together the checklist and complete it for myself, I thought it'd be really helpful to share it, not only with my pricing teams, but with legal, with customer service and support teams. And frankly, I shared some of that with the customers. And I've done this in a couple scenarios because I go in there and I say, hey, here are some of the assumptions that I'm making about the scenario. What do I have right? What do I have wrong? And so in terms of the broader team, business is a team sport. That's a cliche we've all heard a million times as well, but it really is true. This scenario where you're the lone wolf and you're going to go in and solve all of your company or your customers' problems is that's just not a reality. That's not the way business is done. And so for me, it's the writing and then circulating that was extremely powerful. I'd say that if it were just preparing myself, that would have been better. That would have been better than I'd done in a lot of scenarios in the past. But the real power came in showing people that we have a plan here, and this is the approach that we're going to take. And it helped everyone really focus their energy towards getting the win.
And so what do you think that plan does for people, them knowing that we have a plan? What does that do for them as they enter into the negotiations?
Well, it does a few things. So first of all, I'm going to go right back to ego since you mentioned that earlier. It shows people that you're in control. It shows people that you've got a plan, and that's good for your reputational strength, right? But then it helps guide everyone's efforts. One of the things that I learned many years ago is that if you don't have a system, you're going to become part of someone else's system. Another way of saying that is if you don't have a process, you'll be a part of someone else's process. So taking the time to go through these tools really establishes a process that you can follow and helps other people follow along with you and participate in the best way they can.
Good deal.
And again, I'll repeat it. I share a lot of this stuff with my customers. I've been doing this a long time. And so your framework really helped, but I really do, and I really will continue to share these types of things with the customers so that they get a window into how we're thinking about this process as well.
Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to spend some time learning from you. And so one of the things I love to talk to people about, especially those that are top performers, is as you break down performance doesn't happen like in the moment. Talking about preparation, it happens before. And so as a top sales performer in your company and in your industry, what are some of the habits, some of the routines? What are some of the things that you're doing on a daily basis that you think contribute to that level of performance?
Okay, so I'll give you a really simple one that anyone can do right now, and that is set up Google alerts on your customers and your client base and your industry. So if you set up a Google alert, which I do and have done, you can have it send a digest to your email box on some of the big headlines that are going on with your customer, with your industry. You could even set a Google alert on your name. What are people saying about John Lowry today or this week? You can So I advise everyone to do that because it allows you to go into the next meeting or the next negotiation with not only an understanding of some of the challenges and pressures that your client may be facing, but it allows you to have the credibility of being able to verbalize some of that. You could say, hey, I was reading your last quarterly results. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you learned from this project, et cetera? So I'd say just from a habit point of view, set up a Google alert. It's easy.
Great idea.
It's about 30 seconds. Okay. How's that? So that's one I'd advise anyone to do right away, today, not tomorrow. You can do it right now while you're listening to this podcast, in fact. So then the second thing I would say is that, we talked about preparation. So preparation for me means that I never go into a meeting, even a small meeting or a phone call, without having a call purpose outlined. What is the purpose of this call? What is the purpose of this meeting? And again, I share that. If I'm leading a meeting and I'm going in with colleagues, I make sure that we are all aligned on the purpose of this call. John, one of the things I asked you before we started recording, and I hate to maybe give the audience a little bit too much insight, but I ask, what does good look like for you? What would be a good outcome of this conversation? And so taking the moment to define a call purpose, a meeting purpose, is another habit that anyone can use starting right away. So how are those for two things?
Those are fantastic. A lot to learn from. And one of the things that when we had that little pre-recording conversation, one of the things that's interesting is that as you think about those purposes, sometimes those aren't just like the business outcome that you walk out of the door with. Right. Sometimes those are, hey, one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure that we connect on a personal level.
That's exactly right.
And I want to make sure we get to know each other. And so I think the way that I described it to you was, I hope this conversation is like two business people having a beer after work, talking about, negotiation and business and, what you found that helps you be successful and what I found that helps me be successful. And if that's kind of the tenor of the conversation, this is probably going to be something that's useful for folks.
That's right. And part one, a call purpose on a personal level could be, I want to know what keeps this person up at night.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Or it could be, I want to establish rapport. so that we go into the next conversation and we can focus a little bit more on business. So yes, you're right. It doesn't have to be a call purpose of I want to go into this call and come out with $2 million of incremental opportunity. It doesn't have to be that. It could be I want to come out of this meeting and I want to know a little bit more about the person I'm going to be dealing with for the next couple of months. So I want to add one other thing. One other thing, and I'm going to do this because you may not ask me, but I want to make sure I say this. You are asking about habits and you're asking about things that people can incorporate into their work life immediately. This is in the book. I'm not trying to make this a commercial, but ask for more, ask for more, ask for more, ask for more. And it has become such a habit of mine now that sometimes my colleagues and even the customers will laugh at me because I will tell them. And sometimes I make it a joke. I'll be honest. Sometimes I make it a joke. I might say, I want all of your business. Or you, John Lowry, might say, you might go onto Ford Motor Corporation and say, I want to be your only negotiation trainer globally. Just something like that. And occasionally they'll laugh. And sometimes I'll laugh with them. But then depending on the level of rapport, I'll say, okay, but seriously, I mean that. What can we do to make sure that I am your only provider of this service? And now, you don't always get there, but sometimes you do. But I guarantee you get further down the path than if you take the incremental approach. One of the mistakes I see a lot of salespeople make in my business and in other businesses, and I've been in other industries, is they think they try to sell themselves, their company, or their service in terms of if I can get them to stick their toe in the water, they will want more. Yeah. They say, hey, just let me in the door. We'll prove it to you.
Land and expand, right? Yes. Is how they call it. Yeah.
And I respect the thought behind that. But what I'm learning is that it doesn't work that well. Or at least it doesn't work as well as asking for more. So if you ask for more or all, however you want to put that, they may still decide to just stick their toe in the water, and that's fine. But a lot of times the land and expand approach results in nothing, frankly, a lot, or at least a lot less than if you ask for more. So that's something that I've taken as a habit, and frankly, it even becomes sort of laughable. It's to the point where my kids laugh at me because if we're checking into a hotel or if we're on a vacation or wherever we are, they know I'm going to ask for something that seems like should probably be an automatic no, or at the very best, it's just a joke, but it has become a transformative habit for me. And I didn't know if you were going to ask me about that or not, so I wanted to put that in.
Good deal. Well, it's a powerful tool, and it is amazing. One of the things that I like to say is, you're never going to get what you don't ask for. You may not get what you ask for, all that you ask for, but you're never going to get what you don't ask for. And so the more that you ask for, the better off you're going to do. It's a powerful idea. So you and I have spent some good time here kind of sharing what we've learned over the years. And many of these lessons we learned the hard way. And I'm sure I could share with you a bunch of stories about the difficult lessons I've learned. You, I'm sure, can share with me some stories where you're like, oh man, I kind of screwed that up. So what I want to do here is I want to try to accelerate the learning for someone that is behind us in the journey, someone who's younger, someone who is trying to figure out how to learn faster and better than we did. What would be kind of the one piece of advice for this young, aspiring salesperson that if you were going to short circuit their learning, here's the lesson?
I'd say everyone can win. Know that everyone can win. I think that, and this may be symptomatic of our times, John, more than in previous times, but I think this hyper-competitive approach is not necessary. I don't believe in zero-sum games anymore, or at least not as much as I used to. I think what I'd say to a young person is that the more you can solve your customers' problems even if it may feel like you're giving up something, you're really not. Create a scenario where everyone can win and and you're going to prosper. Most of us get into this business, and I would say this to I have said this to young people that I train. When we get into this business, we're going to be here for years, decades even.
Yeah.
Most of these people, we're going to see them again. We'll do business with them again. You will never lose taking the empathetic approach and realizing that they can win, you can win. This zero-sum game, hyper-competitive, I'm going to make everyone a loser so I can win approach just isn't sustainable, and it won't build a good career or life for yourself. So that would be the first thing I'd say to a young person is realize everyone can win and take that approach from the start. Find the win. I think the other thing that I would say to a young person just getting started is, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but one of the mistakes I made is not realizing that there are times to be competitive. So this may sound a little bit like I'm reversing what I just said before, but let's think about it this way. If you're a golfer or you're going to play golf, or let's see, even a fisher person, the more types of bait that you have at your disposal, the more successful you're going to be. Or if you're a golfer, the more clubs you're able to wield effectively, the more successful you're going to be. So I would just share with someone, learn this tool, learn other tools. You're going to want to be cooperative, but there's times when it's not appropriate to be cooperative. There are times when it's time to hold a harder line, to be competitive, to put on a little bit of a different personality than may be naturally comfortable for you. I've had to do that, but it took me a while to learn how to do that. But when you can wield a number of different clubs, use a number of different baits, and you're going to land more fish and sink more holes. It's to completely mix up metaphors between golf and fishing out of left field.
There you go. Well, a couple of more questions here that I'm interested in. One is, I think one of the things that people will learn over time is that the learning never ends. There's constantly ways that you can improve, and there are constant ways in which the world changes. And so you have to learn how to do things differently, because the way that you learn to do it no longer is relevant or no longer works. And so as you think about yourself, what is one of the areas where you're still looking to improve, and how is it that you're going about finding that improvement?
Oh my gosh. So I was not prepared for that question. So that is an outstanding question. So here's what I'm looking to improve. I'm looking to improve my communication skills. So for me, I am comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable knowing who I am and what I am. But when I say communication skills, it's learning that other people everyone doesn't receive information in the same way.
Yeah.
So for me, that gets back to not just being a good communicator in my eyes, but what's a way to communicate that helps that other person hear what I'm saying and be able to operate on what I'm saying. So for me, it's learning communication. I've done a lot of work on that this year. Did a lot of work on that in a focused way this summer to just learn different communication styles and how to incorporate those in what I'm doing. So that's a continuing journey for me. I learned a lot about myself that I didn't understand about myself. There was some senses in which I'm still growing in that, right? So I thought I was a square peg, and turns out I'm not a square in some areas as I thought, and just learning that, but then learning, my partner, my wife, how she communicates, my children, my parents who are still with us, and my customers. That's been a big part of my learning journey. That is a good question. That took me off of that took me off guard a little bit. But as you asked, I think the answer is around communication. In fact, I'm looking, you can't see it, but on the wall behind me is actually a guide to communication styles to kind of help me be mindful of how I'm coming across and how I can communicate better.
Well, that's fantastic. Communication is constantly something that has to be refined in terms of the different audiences that we communicate to. I love what you said. This whole idea of, message sent doesn't mean message received. And even with my kids, my wife will be like, man, like what? And I was like, what? How did they get that message out of what I said? And she's like, I don't know, but they did. And so you got to go make this right. And communication is something that is absolutely critical and something we will do every day. But for whatever reason, it's a practice. It's constant growth in how we communicate with each other. So last question. You've already read Negotiation Made Simple, so that book's off the table. But as you think about other books that you would have people read to become a highly effective salesperson, where would you turn them to as far as something that they can get their hands on today that's going to help them become a better salesperson?
Oh my gosh, John. Okay, so I would say there's a book, you'll know this name. There's an author, Herb Cohen.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's long deceased, but he wrote a number of great books that really kind of covered this sales and negotiation space. One is called You Can Negotiate Anything.
Great book, for sure.
I would point people to that because I think it addresses this mindset thing better than a lot of other tools out there. Now, I'm going to go back to giving you credit. You're going to say I'm being effusive with praise, but I think your book really bridges that mindset and then adds some tools to it in a way that Cohen's book doesn't necessarily do. But I would look at You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen. He's got a great line in there. And I won't attempt to do an accent of his. I heard him speak once. I won't attempt his accent, but he says, the attitude should be, I care, but not that much.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And so I care deeply. I care deeply about the work and about my customers, but it's a reminder that the sun is going to come up tomorrow. They're still going to have to drop their kids off at school the next day. You still got this fishing trip coming up. So just keep everything in a good, balanced place emotionally. So I'd say Herb Cohen is a great book for the mental side of it, the attitudinal part of this. And then I'd say go pick up Negotiation Made Simple and use some of the tools that you've got in there.
Well, Mark, this has been a really fascinating conversation. I love the idea of the friction and trying to remove friction as kind of the essence of sales. I've never heard that before, and I'm absolutely going to do some more thinking about that because I think you're spot on there. But really appreciate your time and just sharing kind of the lessons that you've learned from the trenches in terms of being out there and being one of the best salespeople in the world in your industry and for your company. Thanks for taking all of that you've learned and spending some time with us today on Negotiation Made Simple. This has been an outstanding conversation.
John, thanks for the invitation. You are awesome at what you do, and I hope the world knows your name before too long.
One of the things I love about doing this podcast is it's an incredible opportunity for me to learn from outstanding people and great thinkers. This episode is no exception. Mark Anthony McCray has delivered a ton of wisdom, especially for people that are in business and specifically in sales. I love the idea that he brought, this thinking about removing the friction and how friction gets in the way of being able to do business, how friction can be costly, how friction can create conflict that can become a barrier to us being able to get a deal or make the sale. And this whole idea about how we use the negotiation process, how we can communicate to remove friction so that it's easy to do business with us and easy to do business with our companies and organizations, I think is something that is absolutely brilliant. As you think about your work, think about this concept of removing friction. What kind of friction can you remove today? Maybe it's part of your processes that are just too difficult for the customer. Maybe it's communication and there are gaps in the communication that make things challenging. Maybe it's just the negotiation process. It takes too long, or it's too difficult, or it's too combative. My guess is all of us have some area of friction that we can remove. And if we do, it will make business easier and it will allow you to put together better deals. Thank you for listening to the Negotiation Made Simple podcast. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.